Welcome to Race to the Finish. The Chicago White Sox hadn't made the playoffs since winning the World Series in 2005, 3 years earlier. They were in a good position to make the postseason the following year in 2006, having led the AL wildcard throughout much of the summer, but faltered in the second half to lose the wildcard to their division rival Twins. In 2007, multiple White Sox players suffered injuries as only 5 players played in over 100 games. As a result, the team won only 72 times, their first losing season since 1999. Ozzy's boys looked to bounce back in 2008. After an up-and-down first month and a half, the Sox went on an 8-game winning streak in mid-May and 2 7-game winning streaks in June. They even acquired Ken Griffey Jr. from the Reds at the trade deadline, who had reached the 600 home run mark earlier in the season. Throughout July and August, the Sox held a small AL Central lead over their rival Twins. Don't get fooled by what Baseball Reference and MLB.com say their win-loss record was on a certain day in 2008. On April 28th, the Orioles and White Sox were concluding a 4-game series on the south side. Tied at 3 in the 12th, the game was suspended due to rain. The game would not resume until nearly 4 months later on August 25th in Baltimore, preceding their already scheduled game. The Orioles won that resumed game 4-3, which meant that the White Sox were retroactively given a loss for April 28th, even though at the time they really had one less loss than what history shows. So when you see that the Twins had a 1-game lead on August 23rd, that's wrong. They really only had a half-game lead at the time. The White Sox carried a real half-game lead in the division entering September. The Minnesota Twins had not made the playoffs since 2006, only 2 years prior. The Twins had won the division 4 times between 2002 and 2006. The only time they didn't was when the White Sox won the AL Central in 2005. Just like the Sox, the Twins also had a setback in 2007, experiencing their first losing season since 2000. The team only batted .265 compared to .287 the year prior. The team ERA was .418, higher than the previous year's .395. After the subsequent offseason, it appeared as if their offense and pitching would get even weaker. In November, All-Star Torrey Hunter signed a 5-year, $90 million deal with the Angels. In February, entering his final year of team control, 2-time Cy Young Award winner Johan Santana was dealt to the Mets, where he signed a 6-year, $137 million deal. Despite losing Santana, the Twins got rookie Carlos Gomez in return, who would bat leadoff and take Torrey Hunter's spot in center field. Earlier in the offseason, they were involved in a 6-player trade with the Rays, acquiring AL Rookie of the Year runner-up Delman Young, along with Brendan Harris and Jason Pridey. More on that trade later. After a 6-game losing streak in early June, the Twins were 3 games under 500 and 6.5 back of the Sox in the division. However, they went on a 10-game winning streak at the end of the month to climb within a game of the Sox. They stayed hot in July and even briefly took the division lead at the time in August, the latest being August 23rd, where they were also tied with the Red Sox for the wild card. They entered September trailing the Sox by half a game in the division. On Labor Day, September 1st, the White Sox began a 3-game series on the road in Cleveland. However, Cliff Lee stole the spotlight, retiring 21 batters in a row at one point. He pitched a complete game shutout to earn his 20th win of the season. In the previous offseason, the White Sox acquired Carlos Quentin from the Diamondbacks. A 2003 first-round pick, Quentin had split time between the majors and AAA over the last 2 seasons, not quite living up to his potential. Once on the White Sox, though, he found that potential, perhaps exceeding it. At the end of August, he was in the conversation for American League MVP, having hit 36 home runs and 100 RBIs. Monday's loss to the Indians, however, would end up being his final game of 2008. Before grounding into a game-ending double play, he slammed his bat with his fist after fouling off a pitch. Nobody knew it then, but a few days later, he would be ruled out for the rest of the season with a broken wrist. Joe Creedy had already been ruled out with a hurt back, and starting pitcher Jose Contreras ruptured his Achilles tendon the month prior, ruling him out for the rest of the year. The White Sox certainly did not want a repeat of their 2007 injury-plagued season to finish out 2008, as they were now tied with the idle Twins with 25 games to go. On Tuesday, the Twins began a 3-game series north of the border, playing their 12th game of a 14-game road trip, which they were 5-6 on thus far. The Twins took a 5-1 lead into the 5th, until waiver pickup Jose Bautista belted a 2-run homer to left field to make it a 5-3 game. Next up, Alex Rios hit one to nearly the exact same spot to make it a 5-4 game. In the 6th, with starter Glenn Perkins now out of the game, Lyle Overbay gave the Blue Jays the lead with a 2-run shot. The Twins failed to get a base runner the last 3 innings, and the Jays won 7-5. It was a missed opportunity for the Twins to perhaps take the lead in the division. Across the Great Lakes in Cleveland, the Tribe defeated the Sox again, this time by a score of 9-3. It was indeed a missed opportunity for the Twins, and the teams remained tied atop the division with 24 games remaining. On Wednesday afternoon, the White Sox avoided the sweep with a 4-2 victory, thanks to home runs from Nick Swisher and Alexi Ramirez. Bobby Jenks collected a 5-out save, and the Sox took a momentary half-game lead in the division once again. How could the Twins respond? They trailed 2-0 in the 7th, but Jays starter A.J. Burnett ran into trouble, loading the bases with 2 outs. Cito Gaston pulled him for reliever Scott Downs, and Joe Mauer said thank you. On a 3-1 pitch, he connected on a bases-clearing double to give the Twins the lead. In the bottom of the inning, with a runner on second and 2 down, Scott Rowland hit a grounder right to Nick Punto, but he couldn't field it cleanly, allowing pinch runner Kevin Mensch to score to tie the game. In the top of the 9th, with 2 runners in scoring position, Brendan Harris hit a grounder up the middle. Marco Scudero made a nice effort to get to it, but his throw to first was not in time, allowing Justin Morneau to score to give the Twins the lead back. In the bottom of the 9th, with a runner on first and 2 down, Travis Snyder lined a single to right on a full count. Jason Pridey booted the ball in right field, allowing pinch runner Curtis Thigpen to score all the way from first. That was the Twins' 3rd error of the night, 2 of which led to runs. In the top of the 10th, the Twins had the go-ahead run at 3rd with 2 down. In the bottom of the 11th, the Jays got runners at the corners with nobody out off Everyday Eddie. Boof Bonser came on in relief, but John McDonald hit a deep fly ball to center field to walk it off for the Jays. It was the 2nd straight tough loss for the Twins, who were now a game back of the White Sox again. On Thursday night, the Blue Jays completed the sweep of the Twins, blanking them 9-0. The Twins now had lost 9 of their last 12, and were a game and a half back of the White Sox. On Friday night, the Twins returned home from their 14-game road trip, and took out their frustration with a 10-2 thumping over the Tigers. Meanwhile, the White Sox also won that night by the score of 10-2 over the AL West leading Angels. The Sox kept their 1.5 game lead over the Twins. On Saturday afternoon, the Twins took a 4-2 lead into the 8th when starter Scott Baker was pulled with a runner on first and 1 out for reliever Dennis Reyes. However, Curtis Granderson hit a fly ball over the wall in right to tie the game. A couple batters later, Maglio Ordonez hit a 2-run shot over the wall in left off Matt Guerrier to give the Tigers the lead. Another blown save by the Twins bullpen, the 3rd time in the last 4 games. In the bottom of the 9th, though, the Twins loaded the bases with 1 out for Joe Mauer, but Fernando Rodney struck him out. With the bases still loaded and 2 down, Justin Morneau came up, who hit a grand slam the day before. He hit a liner right into the glove of Placido Polanco. Yet another missed opportunity for the Twins to gain ground or keep pace with the White Sox. That night, the Sox hosted the Angels for Game 2 of their series. The Halos took a 5-3 lead into the 7th until Nick Swisher, who was 4 for 42 against John Lackey, hit an opposite field 2-run homer to tie the game. In the 9th, still tied at 5, Bobby Jenks came on in a non-saved situation and gave up a go-ahead home run to Brandon Wood, only his 2nd home run of the season. This allowed K-Rod to come in to try to record his 55th save of the year in the bottom of the 9th. However, Alexi Ramirez and Nick Swisher led off the inning with back-to-back singles, putting the tying and winning runs on base with nobody out. Pinch hitter Dwayne Wise lifted a fly ball to right field deep enough to score Alexei from third, and the game was tied once again. Both teams' star closers allowed runs in the ninth. Neither team scored for the next 4.5 innings until...
And way back! He looks up, you can put it on the board! Yes! Above by Tony, number 537 in his career. Number 30 on the season. And this game is over.
The White Sox now held a 2.5 game lead in the division, their largest since July 27th, nearly 6 weeks earlier. On Sunday afternoon, scoreless in the fourth, Paul Konerko hit a solo shot to put the Sox up 1-0. Tied at 2 in the eighth, with the bases loaded and 1 out, Garrett Anderson lifted a fly ball down the right field line. Jermaine Dye decided to make the catch rather than letting it drop foul, which allowed Gary Matthews Jr. to score on the sac fly, giving the Angels the lead. In the ninth, K-Rod allowed a 1-out single to Konerko, but that would be all. The Angels won 3-2, avoiding the sweep and helping out the Twins a little bit. Speaking of which, the Tigers played spoiler again, defeating the Twins 7-5. The Tigers again came back from 2 down, this time taking the lead in the sixth, and the Twins remained 2.5 back of the White Sox with 3 weeks to go. On Monday, the White Sox were scheduled to begin a 4-game series at home against the Blue Jays, but it was rescheduled for the next day due to rain. This meant the teams would play a day-night doubleheader on Tuesday. On Tuesday afternoon, AJ Burnett and Javier Vasquez were locked in a pitcher's duel through 5. After the latter retired the first 2 in the sixth, Vernon Wells and Adam Lind hit back-to-back singles, then Lyle Overbay drove both of them home with a 2-strike, 2-out, 2-run double to put the Jays up 2-0. Up 3-1 in the bottom of the ninth, closer BJ Ryan walked the first 2 batters but struck out Alexei, then struck out Nick Swisher, then got Juan Uribe to ground out to end the game. The Blue Jays took Game 1 by the score of 3-1.
They see me rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me right.
In the nightcap, the Sox took a 2-1 lead into the fifth, until starter Clayton Richard walked Kevin Mench on 4 pitches to lead off the inning. On the very next pitch,
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
later in the inning, with Richard out of the game, Alex Rios lined a single to right, scoring Marco Scutaro to extend the Jays' lead. Rios would get caught in a pickle between first and second, but Paul Konerko appeared to injure his right knee on the play. The Sox couldn't afford yet another injury at this point in the season. The Blue Jays won 8-2 to win their 10th game in a row, all against teams with winning records. If there were 2 wildcards back then, or there were only 2 divisions instead of 3, the Jays would be knocking on the door of a playoff spot with less than 3 weeks to go. Instead, they were 7 games back of the Red Sox for the wildcard, and they had little shot at catching them. Just as they had done to the Twins a week earlier, they were playing spoiler against an AL Central contender. Speaking of which, the Twins defeated the last-placed Royals at home on Tuesday night, meaning they gained a total of 1.5 games that day. They were now just 1 back of the White Sox, with 18 games to go. On Wednesday night, the Sox looked to stop their 3-game losing streak and the Jays' 10-game winning streak. Up 4-0 in the 6th, Jerry Owens laid down a suicide squeeze with runners on the corners and 1 out, scoring A.J. Pierzynski. The Sox scored 5 runs off Roy Halladay. How about that? After an Alex Rios homer cut the lead to 5-2, Brian Anderson answered right back with an RBI single in the bottom of the 8th, scoring Nick Swisher, giving the Sox a 4-run lead entering the 9th. Bobby Jenks came on in a non-save situation, but allowed 4 straight men to reach after striking out Greg Zahn to start off the inning. With runners on second and third and only 1 out, Jose Bautista hit a slow grounder to short, but Orlando Cabrera was able to throw him out for out number 2, but it was now a 1-run game. With the tying run just 90 feet away, Jenks struck out Alex Rios to put the Sox back in the win column, ensuring they would keep their division lead by the end of the night. And they needed that win because the Twins defeated the Royals that night to remain just a game back with 17 games to go. On Thursday afternoon, the Twins went for the sweep against the Royals. Francisco Liriano pitched well for the Twins, allowing only 2 runs through 8 innings. However, the Twins' offense could only muster 2 runs against Royals pitching, and the game went to extras. In the top of the 10th, Mark Teahan and Alberto Callaspo hit back-to-back singles off Matt Guerrier. With runners on the corners, David DeJesus lined a go-ahead single to right off Dennis Reyes. The Twins' bullpen is going to lose it again. Joakim Soria pitched a 1-2-3 10th, and the Royals avoided the sweep, ensuring that the White Sox would still lead the Central by the end of the day. That night in Chicago, Gavin Floyd and Sean Markham were pitching shutouts through 7. In the top of the 8th, though, a couple of batters after a leadoff double, Marco Scudero brought home the game's first run with an RBI single to right. Later in the inning, with Floyd now out of the game, Lyle Overbay hit a bases-loaded single with 2 down to put the Jays up 3-0. They scored 3 more times that inning to go up 6-0. However, the Sox would not go away. Jermaine Dye hit a 2-out 2-run double to put them on the board. Then Jim Thome added a 2-run homer to make it a 6-4 game. In the 9th, after a leadoff hit by pitch, B.J. Ryan struck out Jr., then struck out Swisher. After a roll-in error kept the game alive, Ryan struck out O'Cab to earn the save. The Jays had now won 11 of 12, including 6 of 7 against the top 2 teams in the Central. The White Sox were unable to take advantage of the Twins' loss earlier in the day and remained a game up entering the weekend. The Twins embarked on a 10-game road trip. First stop, Baltimore. However, as mentioned in the previous episode, the northeastern United States was hit with rain that weekend and postponed many games, including Friday night's matchup in Baltimore. Additionally, it was raining in the Chicago area on Friday night as well, forcing a postponement of Game 1 of the Tigers-White Sox series. Both series would now feature doubleheaders on Saturday. Starting at Camden Yards on Saturday afternoon, up 2-1 in the 3rd, Justin Morneau extended the lead with an RBI double off the wall in right, scoring Alexi Casilla. In the 7th, now up 4-1, Morneau again connected on an RBI double, this one to center field, scoring Joe Mauer. Up 9-2 in the 9th, Denard Span put the exclamation point on this one with a 3-run homer. The Twins won 12-2 to pull within a half game of the White Sox. In the second game of the doubleheader, already up 3-0 in the first, Brendan Harris singled home Morneau to make it 4-0. Later, up 8-2 in the 3rd, Matt Tolbert ripped one down the right field line into the corner. Denard Span came all the way around to score on Tolbert's triple, and the Twins won 12-6, sweeping the doubleheader. By the way, the White Sox and Tigers were rained out again on Saturday. This meant that the Twins and Sox were now tied for the division lead after Saturday's results. The White Sox and Tigers would now try to play a doubleheader on Sunday, but that was in jeopardy because Hurricane Ike had made landfall a couple days prior in Galveston, and the continuing rainstorm was making its way north towards Chicago. On Sunday, the Twins were unable to complete the sweep over the Orioles. Nick Blackburn struggled, allowing 6 runs in only 4 innings. Radhames Liz pitched 8 shutout innings for the O's. This put the Twins half a game back of the Sox, who still had a doubleheader to play later that day. Speaking of which, the Tigers and White Sox were supposed to play a day-night doubleheader on Sunday, but the remnants of Hurricane Ike delayed the start time of Game 1. The game was originally supposed to start at 1:05 p.m. Central, but first pitch was delayed until 4:16. Alexi Ramirez hit a 2-run homer off Justin Verlander. Javier Vasquez threw 7 2/3 shutout innings, and while Maglio Ordonez hit a 2-run homer off Bobby Jenks to make things interesting, the Sox held on for a 4-2 victory, ensuring they would lead the Central by at least half a game by the end of the night. Game 2 started on time on Sunday Night Baseball. The Sox jumped on Kenny Rogers. Jim Thome hit a solo shot to lead off the 4th, putting them up 1-0. In the 5th, Brian Anderson hit a 2-run homer, followed by a Griffey 2-run double and a Juan Uribe RBI single. With the Sox up 7-0 after 6, Ozzie decided to pull starter John Danks, who had thrown 6 scoreless innings on only 95 pitches. Mike Hessman hit a 2-run homer off Scott Linebrink in the 7th to make it 7-2. Then Curtis Granderson hit a leadoff homer off Boone Logan to start the 8th, making it 7-3. DJ Carrasco came in and allowed back-to-back singles. Octavio Dotel came in and walked Miguel Cabrera to load the bases for Gary Sheffield. Dotel struck him out looking, but on the first pitch to Marcus Thames, he allowed a game-tying grand slam. Just like that, the 7-run lead was gone. In the bottom of the 8th, the Sox got 2 on with 2 down when Kyle Farnsworth relieved Bobby Say. Orlando Cabrera reached on an infield single, loading the bases for Dwayne Wise. On an 0-1 pitch from Farnsworth, he hit a go-ahead grand slam to put the White Sox back in front. They won by that 11-7 score, restoring their game-and-a-half lead in the division with just 2 weeks to go. The Tigers and White Sox only played 2 of their 3 scheduled games that weekend. That one game would be made up on September 29th, the day after the season ends, if and only if the White Sox are either half a game up or behind the Twins at the scheduled conclusion of the regular season. The White Sox would now embark on a 10-game road trip. Their first stop was the Bronx, where the Yankees were basically in the same position as the Blue Jays. If there were 2 wild cards, or if there were only 2 divisions instead of 3, they would be fighting for a playoff spot. But alas, they were 9 games back of the Red Sox with 13 games remaining. On Monday night, Xavier Nady opened the scoring with a 2-run shot off Mark Burley in the second, giving the Yanks a 2-0 lead. However, Dwayne Wise hit his second homer in as many days with a 2-run shot of his own off Alfredo Aceves, tying the game at 2 in the 4th. That score held into the 7th when the Yankees scored 2 runs off the Sox bullpen, retaking the lead. They held on for a 4-2 victory in Game 1 of the 4-game series. Meanwhile, the Twins traveled to Cleveland to take on the Indians for 3, who were still mathematically alive for a playoff spot at 11.5 games back, with only a couple more games to go. The Twins were unable to capitalize on the White Sox loss, as Scott Lewis pitched 6 shutout innings for the Tribe. Joe Mauer hit a homer in the 9th to put the Twins on the board, but it wasn't enough. The Twins remained a game and a half back, with less than 2 weeks left in the regular season. On Tuesday night, the Sox and Yanks were tied at 1 in the 4th until Ken Griffey Jr. hit an RBI single against his least favorite team. After a week-long absence, Paul Konerko made his return to the lineup, and he followed with an RBI double, putting the Sox up 3-1. Gavin Floyd ran into trouble in the 5th, up 4-2, but the bases were loaded with 2 down. Facing Jason Giambi, finally, on the 12th pitch of the at-bat, he struck him out. The Sox won 6-2 to even the series. Could the Twins keep pace? Down 4-1 in the 3rd, the deficit grew larger for the Twins when Francisco Liriano threw a wild pitch, allowing Franklin Gutierrez to score. Later in the inning, down 6-1, Andy Marte hit an RBI single to make it 7-1 Tribe, knocking Liriano out of the game. However, the Twins cut into the deficit. Down 8-3 in the 5th, Joe Mauer brought home Denard Span with an RBI single, making it 8-4. Down 8-7 in the 6th, the Twins loaded the bases with 2 down for Justin Morneau, but he flew out to center, keeping the Indians in the lead. In the next inning, the Twins loaded the bases with 1 out for Carlos Gomez, who hit a line drive right to Marte at 3rd, who stepped on the bag to complete the inning-ending double play. However, the Twins scored twice in the 8th to take the lead, but in the bottom of the 8th, Grady Sizemore hit a solo shot off everyday Eddie Guardado to tie the game at 9. That score held into the 11th when V-Mart came up with 2 on and 1 out against Joe Nathan, and he hit a fly ball to deep center field over the wall for a walk-off 3-run homer. Despite coming back from 7 runs down, the Twins bullpen found a way to lose yet another game. The Twins had now lost 9 of 14 to start September. Not ideal in a pennant race. They now trailed by 2.5 games yet again. On Wednesday, the Twins had to face Cliff Lee, who hadn't lost in over 2 months. However, the Twins wasted no time, as Justin Morneau hit a 2-out RBI single off him in the 1st, giving the Twins an early lead. In the 4th, Carlos Gomez extended the lead with a solo shot over the wall and left, putting the Twins up 2-0. In the bottom of the inning, though, the Indians caught the home run bug, literally, as Johnny Peralta and Travis Hafner each hit solo shots, tying the game at 2. After the Tribe scored twice in the 5th to take the lead, the Twins scored twice in the 7th to tie it back up. Could the Twins bullpen keep it tied? With Jamie Carroll on first and 1 out, Jose Mijares threw one in the dirt. Mauer's throw to second sailed into center field, but Carroll stayed at second thinking Nick Punto had the ball. However, the ball got by Denard Span in right center, then Carroll finally realized what was going on and advanced to third. Later in the inning, Johnny Peralta restored the lead with an RBI single, bringing home Carroll. The Tribe won 6-4, completing the sweep, delivering a big blow to Minnesota's division chances. However, they got some help from the Yankees, who scored 5 runs across the 7th and 8th innings to take Game 3 against the White Sox, who still led the division by 2.5 games, with 1.5 weeks to go. Remember how I mentioned earlier that the Twins acquired Delman Young, Brendan Harris, and Jason Pridey from the Rays in the previous offseason? Well, they traded away shortstop Jason Bartlett and starting pitcher Matt Garza in that deal. At this point in the season, Bartlett had comparable stats to Harris, but Garza had a sub-4 ERA, and the Rays were leading the AL East at this point in the season. Surely this trade won't end up much worse for the Twins later down the road. On Thursday night, the Twins began a 4-game series at the Trop. Jason Kubel hit a 3-run shot off James Shields in the first to give the Twins an early lead, but Evan Longoria answered right back for the Rays with a 2-out, 2-run shot off Glenn Perkins. After a Matt Tolbert error kept the inning alive, Dioner Navarro hit a 2-run homer to give the Rays the lead. Perkins didn't make it out of the first. With the Twins pitching struggling as of late, they could have really used a guy like Matt Garza. With Philip Humber now pitching, who was acquired in the Johan Santana deal, Carlos Pena joined the party with a 2-out homer in the fourth, making it 6-4 Rays. Next up, it was Longoria again, his second of the game, making it 7-4. In the seventh, after a Joe Mauer 2-run single made it a 1-run game, Longoria connected on his third homer of the game, a liner over the short porch and left, putting the Rays back up by 2. In the ninth, after a Denard Span leadoff single, Alexi Casilla tied the game with a 2-run homer to right, all knotted up at 8 now. Later in the inning, with 2 on and nobody out, Adam Everett pulled back the bunt and lined a double to left, scoring Mauer and Morneau. The Twins won 11-8 to end their 4-game losing streak. More good news for the Twins on Thursday night, as the Yankees defeated the White Sox 9-2. Javier Vazquez got rocked on short rest, and the Sox lead in the Central was down to a game and a half. On Friday night, however, the Twins lost 11-1, as Nick Blackburn was rocked again. He didn't even make it out of the second. Worse for them, the White Sox defeated the Royals in Game 1 of their 3-game series by the score of 9-4, behind 4 home runs. The Sox lead was back to 2.5 games, with 8 games remaining. On Saturday afternoon, the Rays and Twins were scoreless in the third, and Kevin Slowey appeared to get out of trouble in the bottom of the third by getting Carlos Pena to pop out to end the frame. However, the ball actually hit the catwalk up there in foul territory, meaning it's a foul ball. Pena got a second chance, and later in the at-bat, he laced a 2-run double into right center field, giving the Rays an early lead. In the next inning, though, the Twins had the bases loaded with nobody out for former Ray Delman Young, who hit a fly ball to center field, deep enough to score Mauer from third. Oh wait, apparently not. Morneau thought that Mauer would tag up and score, and he was caught off second and was tagged out for the double play. The Twins did not score that inning. The Rays won 7-2 to clinch their first ever postseason berth. Now, the Twins needed some help from the Royals to keep their deficit at 2.5 games. Gavin Floyd started for the Sox on short rest. Already up 2-0 in the third, David DeJesus lifted a fly ball deep down the right field line. Jermaine Dye went over to try and make the catch, but he could not. It went off the wall. DeJesus sprinted around the bases and made it home in time for an inside-the-park home run. The Sox brought the tying run to the plate in the ninth, but Joakim Soria struck out Jim Thome to earn the save and helped the Twins out a bit. On Sunday, the Twins looked to salvage a series split against the Rays. Liriano ran into trouble in the third, loading the bases with 1 out, but he got Carlos Pena to fly out for a sac fly, limiting the damage to just a run. In the next inning, the Twins got on the board on a Mike Redmond RBI single. Later in the inning, with 2 down, Adam Everett hit a slow roller to the left side, and Longoria's throw to first got down the line, bringing home 2 runs to give the Twins the lead. It was scored as a single and an error on the play. Next, Carlos Gomez laid down a bunt down the first baseline and was able to get around the tag attempt, bringing home Everett from third to extend the Twins' lead. The Twins won by that 4-1 score to split the series and keep pressure on the White Sox. Speaking of which, the White Sox were able to keep their 2.5-game lead over the Twins by taking the series from the Royals on Sunday afternoon. John Danks pitched 7 scoreless innings, and Paul Konerko hit a 2-run homer. Bobby Jenks earned a 5-out save for the 3-0 victory. Both the White Sox and Twins would have Monday off before starting a pivotal 3-game series at the Metrodome on Tuesday night. The last time the two teams played each other was a 4-game series at the Metrodome to finish July. The Twins took 3 out of 4 that series to pull within half a game of the Southsiders and the wildcard. The Twins were 49-26 at home so far in 2008, including 5-1 against the White Sox. They would have to sweep the Sox to retake the division lead, and to take 2 out of 3 to stay in the running. Losing 2 out of 3 would push them to the brink, and getting swept would eliminate them altogether, as the Twins had no shot at the wildcard at this point. The two teams were a combined 16-22 through the first 3 weeks of September. Not great when trying to win the division. Before Tuesday's game, Ozzie had some words to say about that night's starter, Javier Vazquez. who struggled in his last outing against the Yankees. Up 1-0 in the second, Vasquez left one over the plate to Jason Kubel, who hit it over the wall in right for a go-ahead 2-run home run. A couple innings later, Vasquez made the same mistake to Kubel, who hit one to center where Griffey wasn't able to make a diving catch. Kubel wound up at third with a triple. After Delman Young brought him home with a double, Nick Punto laid down a squeeze bunt, scoring Young, and reached first safely with an infield single. After he stole second, Carlos Gomez lifted a single to left, scoring Punto, giving the Twins a 5-1 advantage. In the fifth, with Vasquez now out of the game, Justin Morneau doubled home Joe Mauer to make it 6-1. Scott Baker pitched 7 innings, allowing only 1 run, and made this nice catch here to rob Alexi Ramirez of a base hit. In the ninth, Griffey hit his 610th career home run to pass Sammy Sosa for 5th place all-time. The Twins won 9-3 to move within a game and a half of the Sox with 5 games to go. On Wednesday night, Mark Buehrle ran into trouble early on. He walked the leadoff man Denard Span, then gave up a single to Alexi Casilla on an 0-2 pitch, moving Span up to third. Then, Joe Mauer hit a slow chopper up the middle that the Sox were able to force Casilla out at second, but Span scored to give the Twins an early 1-0 lead. Nick Blackburn got the start for the Twins, despite his struggles in his last 2 outings. In the top of the second, he gave up a leadoff double to Jim Thome. After a Konerko groundout advanced Thome to third, Griffey hit a high chopper to the right side that might have gone foul, but Blackburn fielded it and applied the tag anyways, scoring Thome to tie the game at 1. Blackburn then gave up 3 straight singles, loading the bases with 2 down, but he struck out Dwayne Wise to keep the game tied at 1. In the bottom of the second, Brendan Harris led off with an infield single. After a Nick Punto fielder's choice, Carlos Gomez bunted up the first baseline and also reached on an infield single, the Twins' second of the inning. This put 2 men on base for the leadoff man, Denard Span.
2-1. To center. Down for a hit. Rounding third. Punto's coming home, and the Twins retake the lead. Span's first hit drives in a run.
With Alexi Casilla up next, Mark Buehrle appeared to pick off Carlos Gomez at second, but the second base umpire Andy Fletcher ruled him safe. O'Cab and Ozzie were clearly not happy about the call. That gave the Twins an extra out, as Alexi Casilla walked to load the bases. Then Joe Mauer hit another slow grounder to second, and was able to beat out the double play attempt, bringing home another run. In the fourth, the Sox got one back on a mammoth home run from Griffey into the second deck. Alexi Ramirez followed with a single, and so did A.J. Pierzynski, which moved Alexi up to third. The tying run was just 90 feet away with 1 out for Juan Uribe.
Know my hitter and kind of know where he likes to hit the ball.
There's a grounder to third. They come home. And Ramirez runs well. We'll see if the Twins can execute the rundown any better than the White Sox did.
They have not. Run them all the way back now, Nick Blackburn.
Thinking they could not get 2. Harris came home, and the White Sox did it.
Dwayne Wise fouled out to end the inning, and Blackburn escaped with the lead still intact. That score held into the ninth, when Joe Nathan came on for the save. With 1 out, former Twin A.J. Pierzynski hit a sharp liner into center, but Gomez was able to track it down for out number 2. A couple batters later, he got Dwayne Wise to ground out to end the game, and the Twins were now just half a game back of the Sox, with only 4 games remaining. This is the closest they had been in 10 days. On Thursday night, the Sox looked to avoid the sweep and stay on top in the division. Tied at 1 in the fourth, Jim Thome hit a high fly ball to deep right field. Denard Span and Carlos Gomez converged in front of the wall, but neither could make the catch, allowing Jermaine Dye to advance to third. Thome was credited with a double, no error on the play. Later in the inning, up 2-1 with runners on the corners and 2 down, Alexi Ramirez hit a slow grounder to third that Brian Busher couldn't field cleanly, allowing Thome to score to make it 3-1. After Pierzynski was hit by a pitch on an 0-2 count to load the bases, Juan Uribe hit a liner off Slowey, who recovered, then threw to first, but wide and down the right field line. Everyone came home to score, and the Sox led 6-1, and Slowey had to be taken out of the game. Uribe was credited with an RBI single, then 2 more runs scored on the error. However, the Twins inched closer, scoring 3 runs in the middle innings to make it 6-4. Bobby Jenks came on for the 5-out save, but gave up an RBI single to Carlos Gomez on an 0-2 pitch to make it a 1-run game. The tying run was now on base for Denard Span.
Bouncer, fair down the line, Gomez to third, and he's going to tie the game.
putting the go-ahead run just 90 feet away with one out. However, Jenks struck out Alexi Casilla, then got the dangerous Joe Mauer to ground out to first, leaving Span at third. Fast forward to the 10th. After Twins closer Joe Nathan pitched 2 perfect innings, Bobby Jenks came back for his 3rd inning of work. With runners on the corners and 2 down, Alexi Casilla came to the plate.
Line to center, and the Twins move into first place.
The Twins now held sole possession of first place for the first time since August 23rd, nearly 5 weeks prior. After the Twins had a stretch of losing 7 of 10 last week, the White Sox had now lost 7 of 10 to relinquish first place. It now looked increasingly likely that the White Sox would have to play that makeup game against the Tigers on Monday afternoon. For the final weekend, the Twins stayed at home to face the Royals, while the White Sox went back home to face the Indians, who were already 5-1 against the Sox and Twins in September. However, the White Sox were 6-0 at home against the Indians thus far in 2008. On Friday night on the South Side, the Tribe scored a run in the first and second each, but Konerko led off the bottom of the second with a homer. Then a couple batters later, A.J. Przinsky gave the Sox the lead with a 2-run shot to right field. In Minneapolis, even though the Royals were 13 games under 500, they had won 11 of their last 13 and had won 16 of 23 in September. Liriano got the start for the Twins, who had only one bad start in the last 2 months. However, the Royals got to him in the third. Mike Aviles led off with a double. Then Alberto Callaspo and Jose Guillen followed with singles to put the Royals in front. After a wild pitch moved both runners into scoring position, Ryan Sheely drove both of them home with a 2-run single. Later in the inning, Alex Gordon drove home Sheely with an RBI double to make it 4-0. In fact, every starter in the Royals lineup got a hit off Liriano. Back to Chicago, the Sox took a 4-3 lead into the 5th, but the Indians loaded the bases with no one out, and Shin-Soo Choo lined a 2-run single to center off John Dinks to put the Tribe back in front. While that was good news for the Twins, it wasn't going so well for them either, as Billy Butler extended the Royals' lead in the 5th with a 2-run homer to center, putting them up 6-0. Back to the South Side, still in the top of the 5th with nobody out and the bases loaded again, Ryan Garco unloaded them with a grand slam off reliever DJ Carrasco to put the Tribe up 9-4. Neither the Twins nor White Sox can seem to take advantage of the other team's struggles right now. In the bottom of the inning, Jermaine Dye brought the Sox a little closer with a 2-run shot, making it 9-6. Down 11-7 in the 7th, the White Sox had a chance to get closer with 2 runners in scoring position, but Alexi Ramirez grounded out to end the inning. Meanwhile, the Royals defeated the Twins 8-1 as Liriano struggled. However, the White Sox could not take advantage of their loss, and the Indians held on for an 11-8 victory. The Sox left 17 runners on base and have now lost 4 in a row. For the second straight night, the Twins held a half-game lead over the White Sox in the division, with only 2 days remaining. On Saturday afternoon, the Twins were up first at 3 p.m. Central on Fox. Tied at 2 in the 7th, with 2 runners in scoring position, Ryan Sheely lifted one over the drawn-in infield, scoring both runners to give the Royals the lead. In the bottom of the inning, the Twins had a chance with the bases loaded and went out, but reliever John Bale got Justin Morneau to ground into an inning-ending 6-4-3 double play. In the 9th, Morneau came up again representing the game-tying run with 2 down, but Joaquim Soria got him to fly out to end the game. The Royals came to play, and the Twins wasted another opportunity. The AL Central was tied for the time being. Could the White Sox take advantage? Later that night in Chicago, tied at 1 in the 5th, as Drupal Cabrera untied it with a bases-clearing double off Javier Vasquez, giving the Tribe a 3-run lead. After Sizemore was intentionally walked, Jamie Carroll doubled both of them home. The Tribe scored 8 runs that inning, and the defending AL Central champs continued to play spoiler, winning this one 12-6. The White Sox had now lost 5 in a row, but thanks to the Royals playing spoiler, they remained half a game back of the Twins, entering the final day of the season. To win the division, the Twins needed to win on Sunday, and the White Sox to lose, either on Sunday or in their makeup game against the Tigers on Monday. Meanwhile, the White Sox needed to win on Sunday, the Twins to lose, and win their makeup game on Monday. The only way that the makeup game would not be played is if the Twins won and the White Sox lost on Sunday. Furthermore, there was also a decent chance that the Twins and Sox would still be tied after the makeup game, necessitating a play-in game on Tuesday. More on that later. On Sunday, both the Twins and White Sox started at roughly the same time, setting up a potentially dramatic finish. Mark Buehrle got the start on short rest, but it did not start out well, as Johnny Peralta hit a solo shot to lead off the second, putting the Tribe up early. In the bottom of the inning, though, Paul Konerko answered right back for the Sox with a solo shot down the left field line, tying the game at 1. Later in the inning, with the bases loaded and 1 out, Juan Uribe hit a hard grounder to third that Jamie Carroll couldn't handle, advancing everyone up 90 feet, giving the Sox a 2-1 lead. Up I-94 in Minnesota, scoreless in the second, Denard Span gave the Twins the lead with a 2-out RBI single. Back to Chicago, Buehrle pitched well for the Sox, not allowing a run after the Peralta homer. He struck out 6 and induced 4 double plays. In the 7th, up 3-1, Jermaine Dye extended the lead with a 2-out, 2-run single. The Sox won 5-1 to end their 5-game losing streak and keep their season alive, ensuring a makeup game against the Tigers on Monday afternoon. At the Metrodome, Scott Baker pitched well for the Twins. He threw 7 shutout innings, striking out 9. Up 2-0 in the 7th, Delman Young doubled the lead with a 2-run single to put the Twins up by 4. In the 8th, AL batting leader Joe Mauer added some insurance with a 2-run triple just beyond the reach of the center fielder Mitch Meyer. The Twins won 6-0 to clinch at the very least a spot in a tiebreaker game. After leading the division for most of the season, the White Sox were officially on the brink of elimination. Monday's makeup game against the Tigers was the first makeup game to be played after the conclusion of the regular season since 1973, which also took place in the city of Chicago. After the final Sunday of the 1973 season, the Mets led the NL East by a game, but only played 160 games because their season-ending series against the Cubs saw 2 rainouts. As a result, this meant they could still end up tied with the Cardinals and/or Pirates for the division after 162 games. Therefore, the Mets and Cubs had a scheduled doubleheader at Wrigley, but the Mets only needed to win 1 to clinch the NL East. In the early afternoon of Monday, October 1st, the Mets defeated the Cubs 6-4 in Game 1 to clinch the NL East. The Pirates also played their makeup game against the Padres that afternoon for good measure, although it didn't matter because the Mets won. Back to 2008, a White Sox win on Monday would force a 1-game playoff against the Twins on Tuesday. First pitch on Monday was scheduled for 1 p.m., but was ironically pushed back 3 hours due to rain. The Tigers and White Sox played each other 3 times in September. 2 of those games were rained out, and both times the makeup game was postponed a few hours due to rain. I should mention that the Tigers were expected to contend for the AL Central title in 2008, having finished with 95 and 88 wins the last 2 seasons, and acquired Miguel Cabrera in the offseason. However, they started the season 0-7 and were 12 games under 500 in early June. However, they caught fire that month and eclipsed 500 and were only 5 games back of the division at the end of June and just 5.5 back at the end of July. That being said, they went 19-34 after trading away Pudge at the trade deadline and were mathematically eliminated with 2 weeks to go. Gavin Floyd got the start for the White Sox on short rest. In the top of the first, he hit Gary Sheffield with 1 out, who then stole second to put a runner in scoring position for the ever-dangerous former White Sox Maglio Ordonez. However, on the 8th pitch of the at-bat, Floyd struck him out swinging. He then got Miguel Cabrera to ground out to short to end the inning. For the Tigers, former White Sox World Series hero Freddie Garcia got the start, who ironically was traded for Gavin Floyd 21 months earlier. Garcia was making just his 3rd start of the season after having not pitched at the major league level in over 15 months due to shoulder surgery. He walked Ocab on 5 pitches to start off the inning, then walked Dwayne Wise also on 5 pitches. He got ahead of the next batter, Jermaine Dye, 0-2, but he hit one right back up the middle, bringing home Ocab to put the Sox up 1-0 before an out had even been recorded. However, Garcia buckled down from there. He struck out Jim Thome, then got Konerko to fly out to left, and lastly, got Jr. to ground out to first, leaving 2 men on base and allowing only 1 run. Floyd retired the side in order in the 2nd, and retired the first 2 in the 3rd before walking Chicagoland native Curtis Granderson. With Sheffield up, Granderson stole second, the 2nd steal off Floyd on the day. However, Floyd struck out the veteran with a nasty breaking ball to again strand a runner at 2nd. After Floyd faced the minimum in the 4th, he allowed a leadoff single to Ryan Rayburn on the very first pitch of the 5th inning. Rayburn then stole second, the third Tigers steal of the afternoon. Could the Tigers cash in this time?
Pretty accurate with his release.
Fly deep to left field. Wise back on the track, leaps up, can't get it. He's up against the wall. It caroms into the outfield. Here comes Rayburn around to score. This game is tied. In socking one, taking Wise all the way to the fence, where he was a little bit shaken up. We're tied up 1-1 on the double by Brandon Inge. He drives in his 51st run.
Rookie catcher Dusty Ryan followed with a single through the left side, but with nobody out and the top of the lineup coming up, third base coach and former White Sox manager Gene Lamont played it conservative, holding Inge at third. Floyd and the White Sox were officially in trouble, in danger of falling behind in an elimination game. Floyd struck out Ramon Santiago for out number 1. Leadoff man Curtis Granderson came up, and after falling behind 0-2, Granderson worked his way back, fouling off 5 pitches and taking 3 outside the zone. With the count now full,
remember the curveball to Santiago, 3-2.
Got him. It's exactly what he went to strike out Curtis Granderson. The moment of the day so far for Gavin Floyd. Out number 2.
Sheffield grounded into a fielder's choice to end the frame, and Floyd escaped, having allowed just 1 run. In the 6th, Floyd struck out Maglio to start off the inning, but Miguel Cabrera followed with a 1-out double. Next, Thames lined one sharply, but right into the glove of Juan Uribe at third for out number 2. Floyd just had to face Ryan Rayburn, batting only .233 on the season, to get out of the inning.
The bounce into the force. Crowd is up for him at U.S. Cellular. Trying to hold again, little dribbler. Floyd bobbles it, throws it high and down the line. Here comes the run. Cabrera scores. Rayburn into second. Floyd threw it away, and the Tigers have the lead 2-1.
Disaster for the White Sox, who now found themselves trailing with only 12 outs remaining in their season. Nevertheless, Ozzie decided to keep Floyd on the mound, despite having thrown 109 pitches. Brandon Inge was intentionally walked, and Floyd stayed in the game to face Dusty Ryan.
The line. Swung on and missed. He struck him out. Ryan fans, but the Tigers have taken the lead.
Freddie Garcia was rolling for the Tigers. After allowing the first 3 batters to reach in the first, he retired 15 of the next 16 batters, including 11 in a row at one point. Having thrown only 62 pitches through 5, there were no signs of him slowing down. That being said, Dwayne Wise worked a walk off Garcia to lead off the bottom of the 6th. With Jermaine Dye up, Wise stole second, the first Sox steal of the day. The throw got into center field, but Wise was in no position to get up and run to third, despite the pleas from General Manager Kenny Williams in the press box. At that moment, Garcia felt discomfort in his right shoulder, which brought out the trainer. He had surgery on that shoulder only 15 months prior, which kept him out of the majors for over a year as discussed earlier. Jim Leyland decided to pull him and bring in the rookie Armando Galarraga, who had already made 28 starts this season, including throwing 7 2/3 innings against the Rays just 4 days earlier.
Down a run, and it's do or die.
That one gets away from Ryan, and the runner will move up. Wise into third on the wild pitch. The 3-2. That one gets by all the way to the backstop. Here comes the run. Back-to-back wild ones, and the White Sox have tied it on a wild pitch, ball 4. It's a 2-2 game.
Leland pulled an ineffective Galarraga and brought in the lefty Bobby Say, a reliever with an ERA over 4 and a WHIP of nearly 1.5, to face the left-handed hitter Jim Thome. After getting ahead in the count 0-2, Say continued the trend by throwing one to the backstop, allowing Dye to advance into scoring position. However, Say recovered to strike out Thome for out number 1. Paul Konerko was intentionally walked, putting 2 on base for Jr., who had a sub-200 batting average against left-handed pitchers in 2008. However, Say couldn't find the strike zone and walked Griffey on 4 pitches to load the bases. Leland again went to the pen, this time to bring in former White Sox pitcher Gary Glover. 2 weeks earlier, in a game in Arlington against the Rangers, Glover came on in relief. After loading the bases, allowed a grand slam to Taylor Teagarden on the very first pitch, no less. Glover would have to face the 26-year-old rookie from Cuba, Alexi Ramirez, who already had 3 Grand Slams on the season, tying an AL rookie record. What could the AL Rookie of the Year candidate do here?
First pitch. A ball hit deep to left field. Way back. Tibbs looks up. You can put it on the board. Yes! A Grand Slam homer for Alexi Ramirez, and the Sox lead it 6-2. Mercy.
Floyd was relieved by Matt Thornton to start the 7th, but he was pulled after Granderson reached on an O-Cab throwing error. Veteran Octavio Dotel came on and got Sheffield and Maglio to fly out to end the inning, keeping the 4-run lead. Scott Linebrink came on for the 8th, and outside of a 2-out single from Ryan Rayburn, he struck out the other 3 batters. In the bottom of the 8th, the White Sox added some insurance on an A.J. Pierzynski double down the right field line. He advanced to third on an Aquilino Lopez wild pitch, then scored on a weak grounder to second off the bat of Uribe that Rayburn couldn't field cleanly. That 6-run lead meant that Ozzie did not have to turn to closer Bobby Jenks, and instead could save him for the next night against the Twins. DJ Carrasco pitched a 1-2-3 ninth, and for the second consecutive year, there would be a 1-game playoff in Major League Baseball. The White Sox spent 153 of the 183 days in at least a tie for first in the AL Central. However, they had to fight off a late slump with a 4-man rotation just to force a 1-game playoff. After 162 games, both the Twins and Sox had scored and allowed nearly the same amount of runs and had the identical home and away records. Because both teams were under 500 in the month of September, neither team would have had enough wins to finish in the top 4 in the American League. The last time that happened in the AL was 2003, when the Twins won the Central with 90 wins, less than the second-place wildcard. Even though the Twins won the season series 10-8, the game would be played in Chicago due to a coin flip that took place 2 weeks earlier to decide home field advantage. That's how it was decided back in those days. That was advantage White Sox, who were 53-28 at US Cellular Field in 2008, including 7-2 against the Twins, compared to 1-8 in the Metrodome. Since the advent of the 1-game tiebreaker, this was the first to be held on the Tuesday following the conclusion of the season, rather than the Monday, due to the Sox makeup game against the Tigers. The winner of Tuesday night's game would fly to St. Petersburg to take on the Rays in the ALDS starting on Thursday. For the Sox, John Danks got the start on short rest. Even though he struggled against the Indians on Friday night, he carried a 3.47 ERA into the last day of September. That being said, in 4 starts against the Twins in 2008, he had a 7.91 ERA, with the longest start lasting only 6 innings. On the other side, Nick Blackburn, who threw 5 innings in a win against the Sox just 6 days earlier, got the start for the Twins. He carried a 4.14 ERA into Tuesday night. In 5 starts against the Sox in 2008, he had an ERA of 5.67, not necessarily impressive either. I should note that the White Sox carried 2 veterans and future Hall of Famers in their starting lineup, Ken Griffey Jr. and Jim Thome. Griffey had not been to the playoffs since 1997 when he was on the Mariners, and Thome had not been since 2001 when he was on the Indians. Both were eager to contribute on the last day of September as they aimed to return to the postseason for the first time in quite a while. Additionally, the White Sox were looking to become the first team in MLB history to defeat 3 different teams in their last 3 games of the regular season. Furthermore, a White Sox win would put both Chicago teams in the postseason for the first time since 1917. Denard Span led off the game with a walk, bringing up Alexi Casilla.
And Span takes off, gets a good jump, and a line drive to third baseman Uribe, and an easy double play over to first base.
Danks struck out AL batting leader Joe Mauer to end the inning. In the bottom of the inning, O-Cab led off with a single, bringing up Dwayne Wise.
Slow hit bounding ball to second base. Casilla, and they have the runner trapped, and now Morneau. And the tag is made by Punto on Cabrera.
Have you ever seen a 4-3-6-3-6 double play? I didn't think so. Blackburn got Dye to ground out to short to end the inning, with both starting pitchers having faced the minimum. In the bottom of the second, Blackburn walked 2, but retired Przinsky on a ground out to end the inning, keeping the game scoreless. Let's fast forward to the 5th. Dinks had only faced one batter over the minimum, allowing only 2 walks and no base hits. Michael Cuddyer led off the 5th for the Twins, and his 2008 is a story on its own. On April 5th, he dislocated his right pointer finger when sliding headfirst into third as his hand struck Alex Gordon's leg. As a result, he spent 3 weeks on the DL. 2 months after returning from injury, he strained a tendon in his left pointer finger, which put him back on the DL. A little over a month later, when on a rehab start with the AAA Rochester Red Wings, his left foot was broken when teammate Garrett Jones hit a line drive right at Cuddyer's foot, who reached first after a walk. This pushed his return to the Twins lineup back until mid-September, where he played in 9 of the team's final 17 games, 3 of which were starts, including Tuesday night's tiebreaker. However, he was used as a pinch hitter or DH. Ron Gardenhire did not put him in the field due to his foot injury. With all that said, Cuddyer delivered the Twins' first hit of the night, a leadoff double into the left field corner. All of a sudden, the Twins had a runner in scoring position with nobody out in a tie ball game. Delman Young came up next and hit a fly ball to center field, deep enough for Cuddyer to tag from second and advance to third, the first time either team got a base runner that far at this point in the game. The go-ahead run was just 90 feet away, with only 1 out for the other guy who came over from Tampa, Brendan Harris.
Would be welcome. The 2-2, a swing and a high pop-up, short center field. Griffey coming on. Cuddyer's going to try the arm. He's tagging. Griffey has it. He's coming home. The throw to home. In there, Przinsky with the tag. He got him. He got him. What a play by Griffey in center. The tag is Cuddyer tried to run over Przinsky. The Twins are out here in the 5th on a double play fly out to center. Halfway through the game on this momentous night, on a cool night in Chicago, Twins and Sox, no score.
On the other side, Nick Blackburn had nearly matched Dinks' performance on the mound, issuing just 2 singles and 2 walks through 6. The game remained scoreless into the 7th, when Joe Mauer tried to catch the Sox defense off guard with a bunt, but AJ was able to throw him out. In the bottom of the 7th, with Blackburn having retired the last 9, the aforementioned Jim Thome came to the plate to lead off the inning.
The 2-2 to Thome from Blackburn. A swing and a high fly ball, deep center field. Running back, Gomez. He's at the track. He's at the wall. Gone. Thome lights it up. Sox lead 1-0. He's hit his 34th. Straight away center.
Team that gave up the most home runs in the major leagues in September, the Minnesota Twins. They just gave up another one. And that one went 430 happy feet.
A couple batters later, Griffey, did he do it too? Not quite, but good enough for a 1-out double. He was replaced by pinch runner Brian Anderson, who would take his spot in center field. After intentionally walking Alexi Ramirez, Blackburn was pulled for Jose Mijares. With 2 on and 1 out, the White Sox looked to add on to their lead. However, AJ grounded out to first for the 2nd out. With 2 runners in scoring position for Juan Uribe, he hit one in the air to left center field, but Delman Young came over to make the catch to keep the deficit at 1. In the 8th, Brendan Harris singled to left with 1 out, something he couldn't do back in the 5th inning with Cuddyer on third. Harris was lifted for pinch runner Matt Tolbert, who would stay in the game at third base. With Dinks now at 100 pitches, Nick Punto came to the plate. Could the Twins finally get to Dinks?
Punto guarding the line at third is Uribe, and the 1-1 is swinging a double play ball to short. To second for 1, Ramirez to first. They double him up. 6-4-3. Inning-ending double play. In the inning, no runs.
That was the 3rd double play that the Twins hit into that night, and they were all in 3 different ways. For the 9th, the Sox brought in their closer, Bobby Jenks, who threw only 8 pitches in the 9th inning on Sunday against Cleveland. His appearance before that was not great, as he allowed 2 runs in 2 1/3 innings against the Twins, getting the loss. Could he redeem himself here?
Another hammer. The 1-2. Curveball swung and a miss, strike 3. He's out. Here's the 1-0 pitch to Span. A swing and a bouncing ball to first. Swisher's got it. Twins are down to their last out.
And Ozzie Guillen is waving Jermaine Dye in closer in right field.
Here's Casilla. The pitch to Alexei. Swing and a fly ball. Dropping fast. Right center field. Anderson dives. Sox win. Sox win. Great play by Anderson. The White Sox are going to the playoffs with their 163rd game. It's their 89th win. What a job by pitching by Danks and by Jenks. Wow, what a game, Stephen.
Just an unbelievable performance by John Danks. Bobby Jenks came on and couldn't have done it without the heroics of Brian Anderson. That ball could have dropped for a double. Anderson came on. It was a flat-out dive. It wasn't one of those where you catch it and then dive. And the Chicago White Sox are the American League Central champion.